Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my video where I'm reviewing 3 of the books that were considered for the BookTube prize under Group E of the Octafinals. So just this morning as I'm filming this, Robert at Barter Hordes posted the announcement for which books made it from the quarterfinals to the semifinals. So my video is way obsolete, especially because absolutely none of the books I'm talking about are in the running for the BookTube prize anymore. 2 of them were actually cut off a few months ago after the Octafinals, and then the final one was cut off today and didn't make it past the quarterfinals. But since I'm not taking part in the BookTube prize in an official capacity, I decided in the beginning of the year to pick 12 books off of the Octafinals list that interested me the most, and I sectioned them off based on their groupings, and I'm making my own shortlist based on what I think of the books. So hopefully that will be of interest to some, but I will also link down to Robert's video down below so you'll have an idea of where the actual BookTube prize is now. Anyway, I'll start by talking about the book that I just read, because the other 2 I actually haven't read in several months, so I guess I'll be giving my impressions about why or how they stuck with me. But the book I just finished is Red Clocks by Lenny Zumas, and this is a book that takes place in America in a near-future setting where Congress has passed laws, a personhood law for fetuses, giving them the rights of owning property and other rights afforded to human beings, and that of course changes things dramatically for women in autonomy over their bodies. And it doesn't stop there, because you know, I guess in terms of a conservative government, abortion is only stop 1. They also want to have more control over types of artificial pregnancy and practices of adoption, about who gets to adopt. So that's how these issues actually touch the 4 narrators in this story. We're following Roberta, who is a biographer. She's in her 40s. She wants to get pregnant. She's having trouble. She wants to adopt, but now the laws are prohibiting her from doing that as well. And she is also, as well as being a teacher at the local high school, she also is writing a biography of an Icelandic explorer from a couple centuries ago. And then there's Maddie, who is a young teenage girl who gets pregnant and doesn't want to be, and she's a student in Rose's class. There's Susan, who is, I guess, a 30-something mother of 2 kids, sort of stuck in a exhausting marriage that she's not thrilled about, and her husband is a colleague of Rose. And finally, there's Jim Percival, who is this eccentric woman who lives out in the woods and sort of offers homeopathic and sometimes illegal remedies to women from Roe to Maddie, who are looking for either ways to get pregnant or to end pregnancy. And roughly speaking, the plot kind of follows Maddie's pregnancy and also some legal actions taken against Jim Percival by a jealous lover and who she used to treat. I had mixed feelings about the book. I actually had trouble for a little bit remembering the characters as names, because Zumas always referred to them by these titles of daughter or mender or biographer and wife. And they would refer to themselves like that within the story, and I thought that made things a little too philosophical, like trying to say that they were speaking for all women, and certainly all women are in similar situations, but it just felt more pompous than real to me. Like, what would feel real is knowing these human beings as actual human beings. And I feel like she did that really well. This was not a didactic book. This was not only a screed against the conservative push to end abortion. This was showing legitimately how issues of pregnancy and family affect these particular women. So I really did feel like making it a little too removed with the titles was a bad decision. I also thought all of the random quotes from this Icelandic figure was a bad idea. I feel like Zumas was hitting us over the head with the idea of, you know, in this past time there was this woman who felt out of touch with her time too, but it just didn't really connect with the rest of the story to me. And finally, I had a couple of issues with Jin Percival, the mender. She had a relationship with one of the other characters, which felt a little convenient to me. And also, I was sort of chafing against the idea of her being this alternative medic, like that, like almost as if Zumas was saying, well, you know, in this strange new world, there are no more doctors or something, you know, because people can't legally perform abortions or give various types of health care to women. So I felt like, in a way, it seemed like Zumas was making her seem really eccentric and outlandish. She was the most eccentric, outlandish character of the bunch. She barely had any human contacts and didn't like humans and lived out in the woods, kind of like the Quaker woman in The Witch of Blackbird Pond, who was also an outcast. And it was like, wait, what century are we in again? But I feel like I could respect her more if I just saw her as a person who would have, you know, lived this lifestyle during any time. I think the book was strongest when it was just talking about the ways that these new laws interacted with the lives of the characters. So again, these characters were really real. I just think that the writing style, which was very stream of consciousness and media res, and also had these frills of the titles and everything, it sort of distanced me a little more from the story than I would have liked. But overall, I'm definitely glad I read it. Next, I'll talk briefly about The Female Persuasion by Meg Wolitzer. I have talked about it several other times on BookTube, so I don't feel too bad, but quickly, the story largely follows this young woman named Greer Grit-Gadetsky, who in college, right after she had a sort of feminist awakening because she'd been assaulted at a party, she goes to a lecture given by this Gloria Steinem-esque character, Faith Frank. And she kind of falls under Faith's spell in a way, and when she gets out of college, she reaches out to Faith and actually ends up taking part in a new women's nonprofit that Faith is starting. The book also follows Greer's best friend, Z, who goes on to teach in an inner city school, and also Greer's boyfriend, Corey, whose own life is upended when his brother dies. But the main crux of the story is about Greer's life with Faith, which goes into issues of intergenerational differences about what feminism is. And in fact, a lot of the criticism of this book, I think, came from the fact that Faith is not sort of woke in today's terms about feminism. She's definitely speaking to her own generation. How idealistic is this world anyway? And that's what Greer particularly chafes against. And I think that was really a fascinating sort of coming-of-age moment for Greer about who she is and what she stands for, and how it interacts and doesn't interact with this person who provided such a great awakening for her. I do think, in a way, because of the other two storylines, it was a little less focused, but I love Meg Wolitzer's writing style. I love her characters. I love these often very feminist issues that she delves into, so I really did love this book. And the final book I'll be talking about, which again I've rambled on about a lot in other parts of BookTube, is Girls Burn Brighter by Shobha Rao. This is a novel that follows two impoverished young girls out of India, Purnima and Savitha, and they are both subject to pretty horrendous misogynistic abuse, just out of sort of cultural norms a lot of the time. Purnima is given in marriage to an abusive husband, and Savitha is sexually assaulted, and that basically takes her off the marriage market and has a much worse fate about getting on as a woman. And she ultimately is sold into America basically as an indentured servant, and Purnima is actually able to get out of her circumstances and follow Savitha there. And that's maybe the more convenient part of the story, how she's able to track her. But what really worked for me in this novel is Rao probing the idea of what makes and what breaks a person without it going into torture porn. And I've struggled about ways to explain how I view how she went into the psychologies of Purnima and Savitha, who both, you know, sort of come to different ends in the story psychologically. I mean, obviously they're victims, and it does no good to say that it's bad to, you know, look at that honestly about how they were victimized by society. But the point of it isn't basically to cut yourself up about how horrible it is to them, but to show beyond these acts that happen to them how it changes them as people, and how their personal inner fires are affected, because ultimately this is a story about them and not about the abuse that is heaped onto them. And so there's beautiful passages in here, particularly from Purnima, about her internal fire and sort of getting a stronger sense of herself. I think that really was her journey in this book, that maybe she was slightly more sheltered in the beginning. Well, she had a difficult life, but in a way she was slightly more sheltered. And she actually hardened and got a better sense of herself as the story went, where Savitha's in a way was more heartbreaking because she was stronger in the beginning, and near the end there's this horrible breaking point. And it brought me to tears because, you know, you could see this breaking of a human being where she just had too much. Too much had happened. And it was just so sad. And Shobha Rao exists on this planet, I believe, to show us the dark underbellies of society. And she did the same in her short story collection. But it was beautiful, and it was true, and it was so touching, and I think about it so much months later. That's what I remember, is these themes and this idea of seeing the truth of a person in these circumstances, and the beauty of a friendship that can you know, survive all of this abuse as well. And that's why it remains my favorite of these three books, and the book that I will be advancing to my personal shortlist. So that about covers it for me now. Gotta wrap this up quick before I run out of battery, it seems. You can find links to all of my Goodreads reviews for these three books below. I will also link to the 2 videos I did in previous months down below of my reviews of books from the BookTube Prize Octafinals lists A and B. And I'll also link to more information about the BookTube Prize, because it's been so much fun, and I hope that this hashtag that I'll be putting in the video, it should be linking you to more videos of judges talking about their own picks, and there should be more hopefully coming out soon now that the semifinals have been announced. I can't wait to watch them myself. So thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.